This thing that I have found is what I would call my gracious space. Hey folks, Jack here with Gracious Spaces, and we are, as you can guess, perhaps we're in a vault, and this is so exciting to me. We're still in Old Town Orange, but we happen to be in a vault. We had this unique situation where we were able to come in and talk to the owner of Play Coffee, and very excited to have him here today. He's a fellow business owner, outstanding community person here in Old Town Orange, and a friend of mine as well. And hey, welcome, Leon.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
excited we're doing it in here.
It's so cool. This is just very unique for me. I'm very excited that you allowed us into your space. Course, yeah. But I have to say, Play Coffee is living up to his name, because this is right up your alley, right? This is
it is
what you stand for
sure.
Yeah. So fill us in a little bit about the building we're in and how it came to be for you.
Yeah, it's quite a process. It was quite a process, but there's moments that happened really quickly, and a lot happened in a short period of time. But yeah, it's been very interesting. We've been in operation for a year and a half now.
It's been over a year. Wow.
Yeah, about a year and a half almost. But we built the cafe pretty quickly. We did it in 86 days from start to finish. A lot of pre-planning, a lot of prefabricating before. But yeah, it was pretty interesting how it came together. I mean, we had an opportunity to lease the space originally. I had taken a meeting with a couple representatives from the bank. They were involved in the Chamber of Commerce in North Orange County. So we were really mainly talking about, helping out the chamber there, because our the first Play Coffee is in Fullerton. Yeah, we've been there for about 4.5 years now, and also
in a very unique situation because it's a shipping cargo container, right?
That spot used to just be a parking lot for the restaurant next door, and it's in the middle of the SoCo district, really close to the train station there. We're surrounded mainly by bars and taverns. But yeah, pretty unique build. All repurposed shipping containers.
That's so cool.
More of like an outdoor cafe. Yeah. But yeah, the two coffee shops couldn't be any different from one another.
But still fitting within your vision.
Definitely.
They're both playful and unique in their own way. Yeah. I'd say you don't shy away from hard work or imagining what can be.
For sure.
Full disclosure, my shop is across the street from you, and where we're sitting is Wells Fargo Bank, which was the first bank of Orange, 1900s. It's a historical contributing building to this community. But my office looks down over here at your front door, and when y'all were doing the build out, I kept seeing you with the wheelbarrow and the concrete, and I was like, who is that guy? He's a beast. This is before I even knew you.
I don't think we had met yet.
No, we hadn't, but I was like, whoever he works for, he's hustling, man. But I admire that in you. You could easily have contracted out, but you're sitting there humping the concrete out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've always wanted to be really involved from the build-out standpoint. Great learning opportunity. I've learned so much by being involved in all the different projects we've worked on. And byproduct of that is you just end up becoming so much more connected what you're doing and your vision, and just knowing that certain things were built by your team, yourself. It just makes it more fulfilling, I would say. But yeah, I was just trying to make sure we were building it quickly. So
you jumped in. Front lines and all.
We're happy how quickly it came together. But yeah, kind of backstory, we were originally planning on being open with the bank. And the Wells Fargo, there was the Starbucks in here, for quite a long time.
Yeah.
The building, but there's a few years in between when Starbucks had left and when there was an opportunity for us to be in here. So it's kind of nice that there was that gap. I don't think there's sentiment from guests that kind of are coming in expecting what used to be here a few years ago.
Well, and there's a place for Starbucks. Don't knock that, but
Totally.
so glad you guys are here. This is great coffee.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I grew up here. Grew up in Santa Ana, and then we moved to Orange area in 3rd grade. Yeah. So really familiar with the circle. Have seen it change and evolve over the years.
So as a kid, did your parents bank here?
No, they didn't. Yeah, we banked at the Wells Fargo Main and Warner, Santa Ana.
Yeah,
that's really close to where we lived.
But being a pretty significant building here in town, a very prominent corner right off the plaza, never probably even the thought in your head, I'm going to be in that building one day.
No, not at all. Yeah, not at all. I guess certain opportunities come about, and I'm happy to have been already involved business-wise to really understand how unique of an opportunity it was for this to be a possibility, and work hard to realize the opportunity.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really interesting.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but you entered into the Wells Fargo former Starbucks space with a lease. Wells Fargo decides to sell the building. Man, what a position you're in. You got this lease, sealed. So anyone interested in buying the building you came with it.
Yeah.
And I imagine that's a challenge for some people that may not want a coffee shop in the building they're about to buy.
Totally. Yeah.
So
there's a potential for conflict for sure. But yeah, we signed a long-term lease. Just kind of like in terms of leases, opening a coffee shop has never been like a short-term kind of goal.
Yeah.
It's always like, okay, we're going to open in Fullerton or in Orange, now in Laguna next.
Yeah.
But the goal is always, how can we be here for as long as possible? So once you kind of open a cafe and make roots in a community, you really want to do a good job and be in that community for a long time.
And I must say, you've jumped right into it. Orange is a really unique town, and I'm sure there's plenty of other towns around the U.S., but it's very community-based.
Oh, man.
Extremely.
It's special.
Yeah, very.
Yeah, there's not many places like it. But yeah, it's really interesting having lived in the area. But I mean, once you are in business in the area, it creates such a different dynamic. I'm glad we've been open for at least a year now. So you get a much better understanding of why people like being here.
Oh, and you're held coming into a building such as this with the significance of it. You're held to a pretty hard standard.
Totally.
Yeah. People are very attached to the history behind this town.
Yeah, rightfully so too. I mean, because there's such a long history. The building was built in 1928. Prior to this specific building, it used to be a bank as well.
Yeah.
And then First National Bank, they built it. They had 13 branches locally from Anaheim Hills, Orange, Tustin. And then First National Bank was acquired by Wells Fargo in 1971.
Yeah.
So it changed hands then. But it's really only ever been a bank. This is the first time it has not been a functioning bank since its inception.
Well, I was thinking about that actually, and I was thinking I was envisioning the banker, whoever opened up that day, when it was a former bank, and their day isn't much more different than your day. You're opening the doors, you're serving the community, you're providing something the community needs. That's kind of pretty cool. Even though it two different things there, you're still giving that same service.
Totally. And there's are some, underlying like similarities with the two businesses. I mean, they're both basically retail.
Yeah.
And they're both very service oriented at heart.
In a day, and I hope I don't get beat up for saying this, in a day where service is not that prevalent anymore, the day of online shopping, and I mean, to be able to get a good customer experience, I mean, there's good, and then there's excellent.
Yeah.
And I know when I walk through your door in the mornings, I get excellent.
Oh, thanks.
So a huge difference. We all can be good.
Yeah.
But I preach that to my staff. We need excellent. Every day people come through our door.
Yeah. I just recently read a book called Unreasonable Hospitality. And it's mainly sharing stories from 11 Madison Park, which is a pretty recognized restaurant in New York.
Yeah.
But yeah, the service is so important, just
important.
beyond product, location, of course.
Yeah. How do you relay that to your staff? How do you coach that?
It's kind of one of those things that I think there's an indirect component to it, I would say. It's not really something that can be shared exclusively in an oral way. Yeah. I think it has to be demonstrated and then modeled. Yeah. Because what happens in a cafe environment, I mean, we have a staff of 18 now between the two shops. Yeah. We're all very attentive to one another. So everyone kind of plays off each other and like pays attention to how we treat others, and but as the operator and owner, setting the example is the best way for what you expect to be translated through staff. But also, there are direct ways to like work with staff and beyond modeling, breaking down the model of what like our standards of excellence are at play, expectations. But yeah, we've definitely developed it over time. Now having been open for 4 years, we do have certain positions now within the team that are really supportive and helpful. That ensures that standard of excellence is upheld, and but it is a day-to-day effort.
Well, and you're at the two current locations, you're also going to have you've got guests going to both, so what they expect and experience at one, they expect and experience at the other one too. So it's got to be a balance. Is there any competitiveness between Fullerton and Orange?
I would say so. I would say so.
It's just sort of human nature, right?
Definitely. I think more so in the sense of where our staff likes to work or what they like between both shops. So here in Orange, we've been lucky to have such great community support that's led us to a place where it's really busy, and I would consider this more of like a high volume cafe.
Orange is not lacking coffee. That's for sure.
No, that's true.
I've never counted, but I'm pretty sure I would probably need to go into my toes and after I'm
it
done
seemed
with
like
my
it
fingers.
happened overnight too. I mean, even before we opened, a couple cafes opened in the area. But yeah, I mean, at one point it seemed like there was no really specialty coffee in the area. There's Aussie Bean. That was, I think, probably the only like true independent specialty cafe Orange has had, and Portola in the shared space and provisions. But small footprint. Kind of smaller cafe. And then before we opened, maybe 2 or 3 others opened, and since we've opened, I think a couple others have opened a location as well.
How do you manage your time between the two and then expecting a third location? That's going to put Leon in a little bit of a thin layer there.
I have a pretty good routine, so I kind of stick to it for the most part. But I think about presence, and so if I'm here, and especially if I'm on bar, I'm only here, and I'm only on bar and present here. That's kind of an important thing. I see kind of operators that have many locations running around and they're not really present with their service or whether it's food preparation or beverage preparation. But
and you know what, Leon, I love that because you don't have to be on bar if you don't want to.
No, not technically, but
your customers love that. They want to see you on bar.
Oh yeah,
and your staff.
It's really important for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I balance the two. So I spend a lot of weekend or weekday evenings in Fullerton.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of weekends here in Orange. But yeah, I go back and forth. Some days I just stop in and then work on the other store.
The importance of that to you, is that to help you not forget where you came from, show leadership?
Oh man. So we work with so many different roasters from around the world, and our product offering is so vast and ever changing. I mean, in a given year, we'll see anywhere from 400 to 500 different coffees at either shop. It might be more than that now.
When you say that, so 400 to 500 different, meaning the flavor, the offering that you're putting out.
Yeah, wow. 400 to 500 different single origin coffees.
Oh, wow.
And I definitely pride myself on knowing the most about those coffees. And so when coffees come in and we get 5 to sometimes 10 different orders within a week that are arriving to either location, I study them, I learn about them, and there's no replacement for being on bar.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what I've always enjoyed. I've always wanted to be on bar. That's actually something I share with anyone that has not really worked in coffee that wants to open a cafe. I really recommend working in a bar or in a cafe to really understand what that's like before committing about the idea of opening a cafe, because it is pretty attractive for a lot of people.
Sure.
But
to do it right, hands-on experience.
Totally. Yeah. And it's, and then, just from a staff standpoint, I've always wanted to be very intimate with staff and learn together and, train together. And it's really exciting being active in operations on a day-to-day basis. And it's also kind of like, if I wasn't doing that, what are we doing? Kind of.
Well, I was super impressed with your list of roasters, and it's not like 4 or 5; it's 20 or something. I didn't sit there and count, but they're that hands-on with you as well, because then that's how you disseminate it down to your staff, I would think.
Totally. I've always enjoyed it. I started working formally in coffee in 2012. 2012 to 2016 about at Keen Coffee.
And those were the days where you had only 2. You had Keen and Starbucks kind of.
I think when I started there, Keen Coffee, Portola had just opened. Hidden House was in San Juan Capistrano.
Good group.
But I mean, that was kind of the extent of specialty coffee in Orange County. But the interest in specialty grew really quickly, not just in the county, but across the country. And there's been a big shift from commodity and commercial cafes to more independent specialty coffee shops. For us, we're like unique in the standpoint of our offering. Like you mentioned, we do work with anywhere from 10 to 20 different roasters at a time.
Yeah.
And the majority of our roasting partners are international. And so we connect with different projects from around the world, and we learn about them. We see what's most exciting. And we go through a pretty lengthy vetting process to learn more about the roasters before we bring them on.
Yeah.
Because once we bring on a partner, then the plan is to work with them long term. So we pay attention to things like that matter to us, like the roast style.
Okay.
Our preferred roast style is Nordic Scandinavian style, which is on the lighter side.
And is that the process is different of how it's roasted?
Yeah. Process wise, Scandinavian, all around the world, there's kind of like dominant roast styles that that area kind of enjoys. Nordic Scandinavian is a bit of a broad term, but the roast profile is generally on the lighter side. So, considered like a light roast, like an American roast, like a light roast, like American style is kind of more towards like a medium in comparison to the Scandinavian Nordic roast
and
style.
what's giving it that profile? The soil it's in, the way it's roasted, the machine?
More so in the way it's roasted.
Okay.
So post harvest, post processing, usually the coffees are in the roaster for a shorter period of time. So it could be like 9 minutes or 9.5 minutes versus like a Vienna roast. Just generally speaking, it could be in the roaster for 14 minutes, 13 minutes. So that extended period of time promotes a lot more caramelization of sugars.
Acidity.
The acidity ends up usually dropping the longer we go in the roast profile. So with our preferred profile, it being lighter, we definitely highlight the acidity in coffee.
Yeah.
Sometimes to the expense of body in coffee, which is the sensory term that describes how a coffee feels on the palate, whether it's heavy or light. And we kind of try to make up with that with our brewing recipes and our water chemistry.
So much like processes of winemaking, hops, chocolate.
Totally.
They're all going to have. With those specialty drinks, are you very hands-on in creating those drinks you put out?
Yeah, definitely. We don't do too many signatures. But we have a few throughout the menu. The volcano latte is super popular.
That's my favorite one.
That's
I love that one.
Everyone loves coming in for that one. But yeah, I mean, the menus. The goal is for it to be pretty simple.
Yeah.
Really focus on our pour over menu, our espresso menu, and our coffees rotate daily, or every other day. And then we like to partner with roasters that buy coffees with a predominantly direct trade model.
Okay.
So do the roasters work directly with the producers
the farmers
at the farm level. And that's important for us. Transparency is important. We look for annual or biannual transparency reports, and
it also comes down to quality.
Definitely.
Which you knock it out at the park. Yeah. So I know when I travel to anywhere, really, first thing I do is kind of Google garden stores, because I want to go.
Nice.
Do you go into a town on vacation and kind of like, where's
that's
the coffee
the first thing. Yeah, it's so immediate.
Yeah.
It's even with the family, that's become the norm now. So we kind of travel through coffee in some ways. Wherever we go, that's what we look forward to first.
Yeah.
And that's when we go visit the cafe, that's the one thing where we don't rush ourselves. Yeah. So we always go to the cafe first, wherever we are. And then, just spend time there, observe, talk to staff, and see what's recommended. and then we kind of see what to do
I
after.
love that. Yeah. Kind of a geek about that. So in getting to know you and your products you serve and your staff, I've gotten to know a little bit of your dad too.
Yeah.
And I can't help but not bring him up because he's a riot.
Yeah.
He must be so proud of you for what
Thanks.
you've accomplished and done. And he kind of, if I could set the tone, he just kind of walks around and he introduces himself to people and chats.
Yeah.
What a great guy.
Yeah, it's awesome. Awesome having him around, and just to have him be as interested in coffee is really unique. It's definitely created a really strong bond between us.
Yeah.
But yeah, he has a very interesting story. I mean, he really came to the U.S. With not much. He had a grant from AGBU, which is an Armenian General Benevolent Union.
Okay.
And so they sponsored him to come to the U.S. He was a graduate in architecture. And then he came to the U.S. to continue his studies in architecture.
Mm-hmm.
But our family at the time didn't really have the financial means to support him. So he started working, and he worked, any type of job you could imagine out there.
Did what you had to do, right?
Yeah. But he ended up working in gas stations cashiering for 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
He really spent countless hours building enough of a savings to have an opportunity to buy his first gas station a couple years before I was born. Yeah. So that's the main business that he's spends a lot of his time in. But it's been really cool to see him develop interests outside of the business and food and coffee.
Yeah.
Support my vision.
Well, you're sort of a reflection of him, really. He must be so proud.
I mean, I see a lot of immigrants. Our parents were so happy to be in the U.S. and so excited to make something of themselves. But then generations that follow maybe aren't as motivated.
Yeah.
But I've never wanted to be in that category. No. So we just want to do good things, accomplish a lot. In terms of coffee shops, we're working on a third shop in Laguna. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure we want to open more cafes outside of that.
Yeah.
We'll kind of see. There's kind of comes a certain point where it just doesn't become intimate anymore, or special anymore. Maybe it's the same of having 20 garden stores
one is perfectly fine.
Is it? Yeah.
we get asked opportunities all the time. No,
Okay.
Sorry. One is fine.
Yeah.
Would you say that your family or those things helped you take you down the path of having Play Coffee and choosing the name and your philosophy and what you want to present as a business?
Oh yeah,
came
totally.
from that?
Just seeing family so open to being supportive.
Yeah.
I mean, the curiosity started pretty early on. I was kind of into coffee at 14, 15. So it's kind of early curiosity. Yeah. And then it really blossomed into having a pretty strong interest in working in coffee formally. So going into the first interview at Keen, I was so excited to be there.
Yeah.
And we had maybe a group interview of 8 or 9 of us.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't wait to start working there. But I mean, coffee at the time, there's Portola and Handsome Coffee in LA, and there's some exciting projects with Blue Bottle in San Francisco.
Yeah.
But it was just growing, and there was a little bit of I don't want to say snobbiness in the atmosphere, but I don't think we had totally the right approach in welcoming guests into specialty coffee and educating on different brewing methods and different roast styles. I think the coffee industry was also learning so much at the time. So there's a lot of pressure to message properly to guests. And so I always wanted it to be approachable. I knew our coffee offering would be sophisticated to a certain degree and of higher quality. And
you think that scares people a little bit? They're sort of used to that.
I think it could be pretty intimidating.
Yeah.
And so I wanted it to be welcoming and invite those that just didn't grow up exploring higher quality coffees. The diner coffee.
Maxwell House. That's what I grew up in the South with.
Maxwell House.
Little screw job. Yeah, so that's all I knew.
At one point, people in the industry would judge, the Folgers and the, whatnot, but that's not friendly. And so we, play came as a genesis from this road trip we were on with some friends, and I was deciding on what to name the shop and going through different notes, and there's some pretty bad names prior to play. But there was a conversation I was having with a friend of mine traveling back from San Francisco, and we had cut the short trip so I could come back to work. And I'm like, I'm so excited to get back to work on Friday. And everyone's like, why are you so excited?
What is with this guy?
Like, we want to, maybe spend some more time on the road trip. But my friend Taryn was asking why I enjoyed working in coffee so much. And I was explaining to her that from the 30, 40 different people I worked with, I felt like when I came into the cafe that it didn't feel like I was going there for work. It felt like play for me. And she's like, you got to write that down.
There you go.
If you ever open something,
Yeah, I love that.
So, it felt organic.
Yeah.
Natural.
Well, I want to kind of jump back over to the building we're in.
Yeah.
And tell me sort of, if you can even describe, because it's probably something that you can't maybe, but you come in through the front door, your first day. Well, and then I guess we got to jump a little forward too, because you ultimately have more participation in the building now.
Yeah.
And so let's kind of go into that area.
Yeah.
When you discovered all the history behind this building and what it has to offer. A lot of people don't know what's behind that wall when they first come in, but there is so much rich history. Tell me your experience that day when you started unlocking doors and going downstairs and upstairs. And
oh man. Yeah. Well, we got in here, Wells Fargo was open, and we had a construction barrier where we were building the cafe. It had a full visqueen cover, and it was basically self-enclosed. So we're kind of confined to this like bubble essentially.
Yeah.
So we're in there, we're building and making good progress.
What a strange feeling that had to be, though. You've kind of like in this bubble. I remember that this queen up, and you're in this empty shell of a building. You don't really know at that point what's going to really happen to it.
Not at all.
And you're in your own little corner.
Yeah.
Facing its own challenges and rewards.
Yeah.
And then
just focused on building, really.
Yeah.
And you're kind of just like, I hope we're not too loud or interrupting the bank. But, we were for sure at times. But I mean, we didn't know that there was a possibility of the bank closing till a few weeks into starting construction. And so when that became a possibility, there was a lot of uncertainty in the air.
Oof.
We weren't sure what the fate of the investment or the location would be.
But you kept pushing forward.
Yeah. We had a early termination clause in our lease. I think it was after the 5th year. There were certain conditions if they had occurred that a new property owner could ask the tenant to leave the building, and we had agreed to quite a bit to make the lease even a possibility in the first place.
Right.
you just certain opportunities come up and you see a space or a location and it's like a no-brainer that you want to create something unique and impactful in that specific space. And this is clearly one of those rich buildings with a history that called for something that was intentional and quality driven, community focused, and operated by staff that is incredibly passionate with the product. And so those two aligned. And then when the bank decided to close the branch down with the uncertainty in the air, they decided to sell the property, which was pretty interesting. It's only ever changed hands in 1971. And so it went from First National Bank in 1928 and operated as First National up until 1971. And so there's this unique opportunity to compete for the property. We're building the cafe. We have a lease that could end, rather quickly. A 5-year run is not too long for a cafe. And we built a great team around. It's really supported by my dad. And we got really involved in making offers, competing for the property with the mindset to protect play and the future of the cafe and the brand in this location. But also beyond that, just the opportunity to do something unique in here that hasn't really been a possibility. So the fact that this is the first time it has not been a bank since its inception, I'm glad we've been just open at play for at least the year and a half now, and just digesting the building and the space to be really smart with what we do next.
You can be more mindful and keeping with the history of the building and the town. So it's
totally
a blessing to have that time.
Totally.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely the vision is in formation.
So when you started unlocking those doors though, and all of a sudden you discovered a tunnel, and a tunnel leads to, how many tunnels in the building?
Well, so there's a tunnel that connects this building to the I've heard to the Mason Temple, and then there's a right turn that goes underground to the provisions market. I guess they were unpermitted builds, and the city made the property owners close them off at one point. The contractor that was here working in the building said that was in the 60s. They barricaded off those tunnel entrances on all the entrances. So this building also has a basement. It's about 1,200 square feet. Pretty interesting down there. I heard it was leased to the Orange Police Department at one point.
It was like a holding tank, or
I guess so.
Records probably.
Yeah, it was the branch manager explained it was just to hold evidence for the police department. There's a furnace in the bottom of the building. I guess the building was here before there was a trash collection service, so they had the furnace to burn trash and paper, I guess, whatnot. But yeah, pretty unique. And then this vault we're in here was expanded. There's the original vault, which is at the very end of the space here. That was here in 1928. And
so did all the keys come with this vault as well?
Yeah, all the keys are here.
Have you taken the time to go through?
We tried.
That's a lot of searching.
Yeah. Well, the client has to have their key and the bank has to have their key, and only when both of those are here could each locker open.
Right.
So we tried to spend some time to see if we have the matching sets. But I don't know.
That's a lot of.
Might take some time. But yeah, there's 3,198 lockers in here. So definitely a larger vault. Not many of the size in the county. And yeah, when the bank left, there were still clients that, hadn't collected their property from here. So I know that was a challenging effort to, call everyone that had banked here for
huge
forever.
do you have people walk through the door and expect to come into a bank and
Definitely.
go, where to go?
The first few months, it was maybe 1 out of every 3 customers.
Surprise.
They would just look around and but now I don't think that's happening as often.
So real briefly, if you can, because your vision is amazing to me, what you've brought already to this space. What's the next step for this? This is a big building.
It is. Yeah. It's a 12,000 square feet building. We operate about 2,000 square feet of it now.
And that's including seating.
Including our seating.
And the prep area and stuff.
But yeah, the space has a mezzanine. We've explored quite a bit. We explored different fine dining concepts. We went down a rabbit hole on a possible steakhouse. We also have had some leasing efforts, some efforts to lease a specific portion of the space. There's an additional storefront entrance at 101.5. So we've had some interest from ice cream tenants, restaurants, clothing stores for just that area that will continue to be available for lease. It's about 2,300 square feet. But this whole back area, we have some ideas on what we want to propose.
Well, it's historical value too, so you can't change it too much.
For sure. We have to. We're doing some feasibility studies to see if what we want to do is possible. We think this space calls for like a really incredible speakeasy. Cool. Experience. But not a speakeasy experience from the stand. It has to be kind of a different model. We're thinking it's not something that's open all week, maybe a few days, 4 days of the week, 5 to 10 p.m. type experience, reservation only. It's a 90 to 120 minute sit down. And it's kind of, we're exploring different concepts, maybe more of like a prefixed menu of 6 different cocktails or sips, maybe a 7th one that is thematic, changes quarterly, incorporates like a very like seasonal approach to craft cocktails. There's a kind of a brand element where we're incorporating the history of the bank and banking in general. As we're forming
I'm going to
concept.
I'm going to toss out the Orange Homegrown Farmers Market. Be kind of cool to tie them in with some of your seasonal stuff.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Right down the street. But
anyway, love what they do.
They're doing a great job. Put my little hat on for farmers market there. But no doubt just knowing you, it's going to be amazing, whatever comes to fruition. And so I'm excited to see that happening. So give us a rundown on your socials, any kind of website, social media that people might want to reach out and find more about you.
It's Drink Play Coffee at Drink Play Coffee on Instagram. You can definitely give us a follow there. That's where we share like a unique perspective on what's kind of happening at the cafe on a daily or weekly basis, and just engage with guests on what we're serving. And no website at the moment. We're working on possibly having an online retail store in the new year.
Awesome.
But the focus is in person and retail kind of experience here.
Well, that's outstanding. And I encourage you guys dig deep, go into their stories, because the rest of the building, and we'll have Leo, I'm sure, put up some spots of the building. But you walk in, you don't feel like you're here in Old Town Orange. You feel like you're in San Francisco at Grand Central Station or something. The ceilings are I don't know, 20, 30 feet tall.
It's
big chandeliers.
High bevel ceiling. It was hand painted. We were told it was hand painted between 1928 and 1931. It's clearly one of the largest contributing factors of the property.
Yeah.
The columns, it's the Corinthian columns. It's a bow art truss.
Yeah.
The original architect of the building was Morgan Wells and Clements. They were a Chicago-based architecture firm. They had lots of work in LA. I believe they did the Sears building.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really interesting because that was in 1928 when this was in the building stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, the history is really unique. First National Bank. We went to the library and the historian there. Oh man, I definitely encourage anyone that's interested to go visit them. And the address is 101 East Chapman.
Yeah.
And
Fourth floor, right? I think.
Yeah. They'd be happy to, I'm sure, pull up the archives of the history. There's so many photos, and they used to have like open houses here when it was First National Bank, and they would invite the community to come spend time in the building.
So cool.
I'm not sure if they explored through here or the mezzanine or the basement. But yeah, really unique space. It's Orange County's second oldest bank building behind the first in Santa Ana.
Yeah.
Fifth and forget the other cross street, but that was a bit older.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, really cool space where we don't take it for granted for sure.
Well, we'll definitely be sharing a little bit more about this space, but we could go on, and maybe we'd have you back because there's so much to cover.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate you sharing your gracious space with us. It's been a real treat to be in this particular part of the bank and be able to sit and chat with you. And I love your philosophy. I love your business sense, your everything you do. I just love.
So thanks so much.
Thank you.
We're happy to be. I mean, just being neighbors.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. Couldn't have better neighbors. So
and we're going to submit to the city a walkway that goes from our
There we
floor
go.
to your floor right over the street. Wouldn't that be cool?
we need something like that. That'd be awesome.
Well, Leon, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Jack.
It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you on the next go around.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah.